Hi, my name is Dennis Belitsky from Leonardo AI, and today I have the pleasure to be with the third Richard, the famous third Richard on Discord and our beautiful community. And today, Eric is going to be talking about how to create amazing images using Canvas. He's going to tell us a couple of things he did in a very creative ways using Canvas, very creative images. And at the end of this lesson, we're going to go into Canvas and do some very cool things live. So with this being said, Eric, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. So it's a pleasure to show off some of this sort of creative side of things. So
That's beautiful. Thank you for being on this lesson. Let's see what you have for us today.
this was a guide that I also wrote up into the tips and tricks part of Discord. But this shows off sort of using Leonardo as a complete suite of tools rather than just a prompting mechanic. And what had happened is there was a user in Discord that was asking a question about trying to get a vision of a barrel frozen within a cube of ice, and they were having a really hard time with it. So I decided to try and give a little bit of help and see what could be done for this. I did start by just trying to prompt for it in a variety of different models. So I believe it was Leonardo Diffusion and Dreamshaper 3.2 at the time, just trying for, you know, a barrel visibly encased inside a perfect cube of ice. And like that user, regardless of trying to move the prompt around and whatnot, I was getting either this one took the rum piece to heart and showed it inside a cube. This one, I must have changed the prompt around a little bit and it just showed a barrel that was completely frozen with a bunch of ice inside of it. So
it didn't work.
It did not work.
Yeah, okay.
So then we had also, ControlNet had just dropped at that point in time. So decided to try out drawing up a sketch of a cube with a barrel inside of it, and take that into one of the models and use depth to image to try and make it look like a more realistic thing. You know, it came out looking all right. Then I tried to put that back into some of the models, and I had moderate success with that, trying to get it to look more realistic. But what eventually ended up working, and this is what I mean trying to think of Leonardo as a complete set of tools, is during one of my sort of quote unquote failed prompts, I had gotten this nice cube of ice that had another piece frozen inside of it. So I took that into Canvas, another one of the tools, and painted out the ice that was inside the cube with the masking tool, and then prompt for a barrel, a realistic looking barrel. And then I did a few iterations on it until it started to have this nice sort of glassy frozen effect in front of it to try and make it look like it was frozen inside the cube of ice. So that's sort of the workflow that I went through to try and get what this user was asking for, because it was something that that the just text to image was having difficulty with. So using a lot of the other pieces of the Leonardo suite, you can get to something that is more in tune with the creative vision that you got. So that was what we did there.
That's amazing, man. And one thing though is, well, one thing I'm seeing here is that you really need to think outside of the box if you are creating something that doesn't exist in nature, right?
That's right. Yeah. So it's the models and the AI are very good at creating, especially if you're prompting for realism. That's another one of the problems, is that they wanted this to be a very realistic looking thing. So if you're prompting for realism, that's at odds with, you know, a perfect cube of ice around a barrel is just something you wouldn't see in nature. So it's difficult to get that just by asking for it with a prompt. So if you're trying to get things that are outside of the realistic norm, you might have to use a variety of different tools to try try and make that happen.
How did you come up with this idea of, okay, I'm gonna draw it first and then.
So that was, I mean, it's taking a look at everything that is within the suite of Leonardo tools. Some of it is trial and error. I had an image in my head that text to image wasn't going to work because this user had said, they had tried a lot and it was just failing and failing. So I wanted to try it first just to see if maybe a very well constructed prompt could get it, but I wasn't confident in that. So going into it, I was already thinking, what are some of the other pieces that we have within the software that we can try and get this to happen with. So that's why I went to, okay, so we can't just prompt for it. So what other tools do we have? We have image prompting, we have image to image, but am I going to find online a photo of a cube or something like that to try and put a barrel into? Probably not. So that's why I went to, maybe I can sketch something out myself. This is something that we're not going to see very often. So why don't I try and prompt for it using a sketch that I've done myself? So that's why I went to this second piece to say, all right, we've got we're asking for something very specific. Let's see if we can get the AI to do it if I give it a little bit to start off of. So that was where we got this image of a cube with a barrel inside of it, and then tried to make that more and more realistic. And I believe actually that is where this one came from, trying to iterate on what I had created here, which was, essentially what was asked for, but not realistic enough to really run with. I think as I was trying to prompt for the cube to be more realistic ice, that's when this cube came up, but it changed the barrel to ice. So, and then another thing to think of is when you're doing this sort of iterative problem solving, just because something's failed doesn't mean that it's useless. So if I had looked at this and said, oh, oh darn, it turned the barrel into ice as well, this is useless, and I deleted it, then I wouldn't have this to try and do the next step, which is to say, aha, I've got a realistic looking cube of ice. What can I do now? There's a piece inside of it. Now I can try and take another tool that is already within the software and just try and change this one bit of the image by masking it out and saying, okay, let's change this into a frozen looking barrel, because then maybe it will look like we've got a barrel frozen inside the ice. So it's important to think that even though it might feel like failing at the one point in time, because it's not instantly coming out with a barrel frozen in the ice, it's not necessarily useless. So it's important to keep that that thought process going of everything's an iteration. I can work on what I created before using either, I could try and image to image this and prompt for it, but the easiest tool was just to try and, I'm 90% of the way there. Let's take this into Canvas and mask out that inner piece and turn it into a barrel so that we get the image that we're looking for.
And you got a beautiful solution.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess Canvas really can help you to do things when it's out of the usual scope of things you're going to see in nature, or if it's something you're imagining, or elements that don't fit together, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So I remember you had another example of a very cool car you had. I think
Sure.
that would be a very, very cool example of that.
Is the square-wheeled car. There was somebody in the Discord, a user had asked, they've tried many times to prompt for a car with square wheels, and this is exactly the problem that you're talking about. It's not something that we would see realistically, because obviously a car that looks like this is probably not going to be able to drive. But they wanted to try and prompt for this. They wanted to try and get this, and they just couldn't get to it just trying to purely prompt. So this is where Canvas came in. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a second so that actually, no, I will just do a new share so that I can switch here to Leonardo.
Sure, go ahead, man. Oh, there you go. I can see perfectly well.
I'll search my personal feed for square wheel. So again, this is sort of the same thing. An iterative process. I started just seeing, okay, is there any sort of prompt that I can make that's going to say square wheel car? I tried to say faulty prototype. I tried to say car is not going to move because it has square wheels. I tried to put square wheels in there more than once to try and add some weight to it, but it's just too strong. A car in the model it wants to have round wheels. So then I did a similar process as I did with the barrel, and I just drew squares over some of my images and then tried to image that. And I got some stuff, but nothing was all
Interesting.
that realistic. So you get a couple of images where I was almost there. I got square wheel wells, but they still put round wheels inside those wheel wells. So eventually it did end up being a Canvas project. I think I took this image into Canvas, and you can see it's trying. All of this lattice work here is the AI trying to take in the square wheels. I took this one because it looked the least like wheel wells, and it was the closest to having actual tires there. And then, if I remember correctly, I prompted for that to become rubber. Did a couple rounds of that. Had to paint back in the actual wheel rims because I turned this entire thing into a block of rubber. And then once I had gotten to an image of a car that was pretty close to what I wanted, I just took it back into Canvas and painted it. I'm swapping back to Discord here. Painted it to get the car to look more realistic, so that it didn't have all of that those artifacts and whatnot. So that's sort of the process to get through from point A to being able to have a fairly realistic looking car that has square wheels.
That's an insane result, and I'm not only looking at the wheels, but actually the glass. It has all of those reflections in there, which looks so realistic.
Yeah, it worked out really well to capture both the angle of the light source as well as reflection of the warehousing behind it. So I think in the prompt, I had left in that it was a concept car inside a warehouse. So I think that's why it took the reflections of what was behind it in the
Yeah.
glass, which is really nice. Yeah,
Okay. Beautiful. So, what is your philosophy when it comes to Canvas? Let's say you wanna do something in Canvas,
sure.
put together some images or do some corrections. What do you usually do? How do you start?
So my start is either I actually recently did um, another guide on this as well, if you don't mind me taking the time here. So
Absolutely, yeah.
this here is taking an image that is your typical 3x4 dimensions, um, and expanding it out to be 16x9. Let's say you wanted to make a wallpaper or something. If you take that into um, any sort of Photoshop or something like that, and just try and change the pixel dimensions, you're going to get something it's just going to stretch out, distort, because the dimensions they don't match up.
Doesn't look good.
So, and yeah, it doesn't keep the style that you're going for. So this is another good use of Canvas. So what you can do is, if you've generated this image in Leonardo, you can grab it from the previous generations within Canvas, and it'll drop it into the Canvas workspace. So These pixel dimensions, if you can see this here, I don't know if it's too small, 1472 by 832 would be sort of the default 16 by 9 that would fit around a 3x4 image, because the default in most of the models is 640 by 832 for your 3x4 image. Then your prompt goes in the bottom, and your other tools for grabbing and moving around are all on the left. So if I just tried to prompt using that, just to say the same prompt that I generated the image with, it's just probably going to smush more of the same stuff around that. So I'm going to take out everything about my subject, just have my background prompt in there, and try and, if I want to try and match the style as exactly as possible, I'm also going to put my negative prompt into the prompting space as well. That's what the sliders to the left of it are for. And then the last thing also is, I did that for an example, but the canvas is best used just iterating little by little. Trying to generate your full image all at once is not really going to get you your best results. It's going to be best if you try and have so this frame here, call it the generation window. It's best if you have at least half of it filled with your previous generation. So one thing that I have started doing if I'm trying to do this expansion is just use the mask tool in a sneaky way to just tell me where the edges of a full 16 by 9 would be. And that gives me targets to try and paint out too. So then I can switch down to a smaller generation window. That'll give you smaller token cost, or B, you can give yourself more options, so you can change it up to 4 images at a time kind of thing. Maybe that'll make the token cost the same, but you get more chances of getting what you're going for. And then just start prompting away. This is, if you have access to the different schedulers, you can make sure that you're using the same scheduler that you generated the image with, just so that it, again, tries to match it as much as possible. And then it's just iterating. You just go bit by bit, choose the one that looks the closest to what your vision is, and just keep painting it out. A couple other tips, sometimes the straight edges, it doesn't like it as much. So if you can break it up a little bit with the eraser tool, sometimes you get a better blend. I also left in this guy. He showed up just randomly because I was talking about a city, I guess. So I got this random cartoon man, but I wanted to show that because if everything else is something that you like about that image, don't necessarily worry about quote unquote mistakes. You don't have to throw out a generation just because it's got one thing you don't like in it, because that's what the mask tool comes in handy for. So I liked the wall that she was leaning on, but I just wanted to lose that character. So mask out that character and just say leaning on a wall, or brickwork, or corner of a wall, or that sort of thing. And then the last thing that I was doing in this is to make that full 16 by 9 window again, and just put it over the entire space and generate. It's not going to change anything, but what this does is it will give you that full image that you already had, and then you can go through and pull that full image off to the side and get rid of all of these little generations. Because try as I might on this one, let's take a look. You can kind of see here, it's not perfectly straight. I was trying to get it lined up properly, but you might get some of these jagged edges. And if I just downloaded that as my artwork, because that's the last phase, is to say download artwork, I would get one that has a little bit of a border around it to try and show off these little jags on it. And that's not necessarily what we want. We want a nice clean image. So if you do this last step of doing a full 16 by 9, then you'll just get this nice, clean, straight edged image. And all of this, we started from just this middle section that didn't show much, and we expanded out the cityscape and the wall that she's leaning on, and we get a nice clean image.
So lots of creativity applied, lots of little hacks and tricks, and an amazing result. Now, can you show some live example of how would you work inside Canvas?
Sure, absolutely. Let me go over to my browser
Actually,
here.
before you go into Canvas, can you show, the initial images you have? So maybe we can come pick a couple.
So I'll show you a way to try and combine images that you have. So I've done this a couple times. I did an image of some of the very early on in my Leonardo time. I did an image of like a realistic image of the Ninja Turtles and tried to combine them. I've only gotten a little bit better at it now. So yeah, so if you have images that have similar lighting and color schemes and things like that, we can try and create a larger piece of artwork from them in Canvas. So let's say I wanted to take this image of a tall mech, very colorful, playing with powder paint, like some sort of festival type of thing. But I wanted to show a sense of scale. I don't really want all of these people down there. I want it to just be a robot festival. So maybe I want to bring in some of these images too. Now, they're all similar sized images. I mean, these ones are sideways, but they're 3x4 and sideways. This one is or I guess that would be 4x3, and this one is a 3x4, just typical generation. So they're the same sized image, but I want to try and combine them. So what I can do is I can go into Canvas. So I prepped this already, but I can go into Canvas and I can go here to the upload image button. You can see this all right?
Yep, yep.
I can go here and I can say from previous generations. Okay, and that'll bring up my feed. And I can search here if it's something that's way down my feed. These are stuff that I just generated recently, so they're all up at the top. And I can click them and bring them in. So so I've already done that. I brought in that big tall mech and some of the other robots that I wanted to try and combine together. And you can see I've also done some other prep work. So like I said, I'm trying to get a sense of scale on this guy. So I've taken these other ones that are technically the same sized image, and I've taken them and I've shrunk them down. You can do that really easily by grabbing the select and just dragging on the side of the image until you get it to sort of the size that you want.
So that's a very interesting effect. Like you can basically take two images, which when one is bigger than the other one in real life, shrink it, put it together. So you could like take a whale and a man and make the whale smaller than a man and
That's
play
right.
with
You could
that.
have them fit in the palm of his hand if you wanted to. Yep.
Interesting, interesting. Never thought about it.
Yep. And I mean, you really have a lot of freedom as well. You can even take it and you can angle it. All right. It doesn't necessarily have to stay completely level if you don't want it to. You have a lot of freedom. So the other thing that I did here too is, if you remember in my generations there, these both had backgrounds and they both showed, you know, houses and other things to give a sense of scale. So if I'm going to try and combine these, I'm going to want to get rid of that so that I'm just using my other image as the full background kind of thing. And then, so you can do that a variety of different ways. There is a remove background feature in Leonardo. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't for what you're specifically going for. It tries to capture one subject, so I might lose one of my robots or something like that. So it might work, it might not. The other thing that you can do is take it into Photoshop or something external and very specifically tell it which ones to keep and what to get rid of. Or you can do the quick and dirty way that I like to do, which is you can bring it in and just erase using the erase tool here. So you just go in very carefully and just erase all your background until you're close enough to your image. When you eventually you'll be at a point where you're generating and it'll blend that out anyway. So you don't have to be super precise, but the closer you are, the better you're going to get. Now, the last thing about kind of doing this sort of photo bashing in Canvas is the image that you upload first will be the the background. So they layer in order of upload. So currently there's no other way around that, but if you're planning a piece to try and combine images, keep that in mind, that whatever you put in first, whatever you upload first, is going to be the background layer, and everything else will layer on top of it in order that you upload it. So I knew that I wanted a sense of scale on this guy, so I put him in absolutely first, and I can take, if I use the select tool, I can take my other images and kind of layer them in. I think I want these guys to be even smaller. And the other guy here, put him in as well.
What
You can
about
see,
those people? Are you gonna get rid of those people before you add the robots, or what are you planning in there?
so it's either, I can either do that first, I can mask them out first and ask for them to be gotten rid of, or I can try and do a blend and come back and mask them out after. I think because I'm going to be covering most of them up, I'm not going to be too worried about it. And I'll just get rid of this guy afterwards. I think in looking at how it just kind of matches up, I might even just get rid of this this mech here, just so that I can do it easily in the time that we have.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you know, don't be afraid to get rid of pieces of it. It's, you can always grab the original photo again if you need to. You can, I mean, there's a lot of creative freedom that you can have with it. So I'll just take that out of there quickly and bring him in. So yes, so now I'll have to do a little bit more to try and get rid of some of these guys. But we'll see what we can get going here. So the other thing that I'll want to do is, this is part of the way that I do it. There might be other ways as well, but grab the prompt that I had been using, and so that was just, I flicked back there fast, but that's just back to, I have my generations in another tab. So just flicked back to that to grab the full prompt. So this prompt is asking for bright colors, uses a couple game references. It talks about this mech celebrating a festival with powder paint. I think I'm going to take out this piece that talks about the mech itself. Again, like we said with the with that Zelda example, we don't necessarily want to have the subject in it if we're trying to blend it. So now what we can do is mask in between the images to try and just get more of the background. So I'm going to mask between the images where we see some extra, and then grab my generation window, 512, and just snap a generation right there. Sorry, just also use the same scheduler as I had before and try and generate that. Ooh, this is fancy.
Yeah, this is
Just,
new. That's very interesting. I've never seen anybody, mask the edges. Oh, and there you go. I'm already seeing a result. That's very cool.
there we go. So I like this third one the best. So you see, oh, sorry, I'm pointing at my screen as if you can see me point. These ones still conserve that straight edge because it sees it as another image, but the third one I've got there has a nice blend to it. See that? So I'm going to keep this third option.
Beautiful.
Okay, because it gives me the most of what I like there and gets rid of, there was a person in between that, so I'm going to accept that there. And then I can do the same to the other side here where we've got another person. again, I'm going to take some of the previous image in this mask and just try and combine these here. So taking a little bit of the edge here allows it to try and generate in between the two images there. Now I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try and just go through this quickly here. So do this a couple times. Now, again, like I said at the very start, a lot of this works because the color scheme, oh, I like that third one again. So accept that. So again, it's very iterative. I'm just going to keep going through it and doing the same thing and choosing the ones that I like the best out of it. And then at the end of it all, I should be able to do the same thing where I take the full image generation.
What I love about this is that that powder blended in, and that's not an easy thing to do.
Mhm.
You actually picked a very cool example because it's not easy to blend, things like a powder flying in the air, and you did it perfectly in there.
So, I mean, I'd love to take full credit for it, but it is mostly just the AI doing its own thing. Uh, because I'm using the same prompt. So that's another thing. All of these images were created using very similar prompts. I'm prompting for bright colors. I'm prompting for bright lighting. All of them are talking about powder paint. So I think because they have so many conserved details, the AI is better able to generate very similar images that helps it blend so well. So I've lost a little bit of that robot's head there. They all get
Whoa,
powder
love
paint on
that
top of
one.
their head. I think I like that one too. It's very cute that they all get a little bit of powder paint on top of them, which kind of makes sense if they're kind of gathered around.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I don't know how much time we have left, but
we have some time. Oh, it's amazing, man.
so that, like I said, we've gotten rid of the people. We've given a sense of scale to this big mech here. What I would continue to do is try and go in and sort of refine these areas that we're seeing kind of the darkness here.
Let's do one more, so we can actually show how this actually works in practice.
Sure, sure. So again, I'm doing the same thing. So um, again, I think it's a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm conserving. I went back to my original generation and grabbed the same prompt, and then all of these have been generated using a similar prompt. So I'm going to just blend out these pieces that have sort of a background that's not necessarily what I would want to conserve, and then we can see what the AI will give me for this.
And we're still talking about powder, the holy festival, and so on and so forth. So you're still telling the AI, hey, look, oh wow, look at that, amazing. You're still telling the AI, I need a lot of powder in there, right?
Yeah. I like it most of the way, but I don't really like what it's done to the one mech's head. So I'm going to cancel this. And this is something that you can do. Take your eraser tool, tell it to go mask only, and just
Oh,
take that
cool.
off of the robot's head there, and try again,
Nice hack.
so that I don't lose the robot's head here. I like it to be a little bit round there.
And
And
we
then there
really
we go.
wanted to make this lesson quick. But the thing is, you can do it step by step, right? So you can do one little area, then another little area, and
That's
get
right.
amazing
Yeah,
results.
exactly. And then the last thing that I would do again is um, change my generation window to the full size of the original. Oh, I did scale up the mech a little bit. So let's see.
That's okay.
There we go. And there we go. All right. Well, I didn't make it exact, but what this will do is see on the edges, I was not, my generation window didn't quite line up exactly. And I'm also going to get rid of this extra masking that I've got on the edges. But I'm just going to do one more. Actually, I will leave the mask there because I see a little bit of my previous stuff there. I'm just going to do one more generation to try and get me one full image.
See how it goes, yeah.
Because it should just give me, it shouldn't change it all that much. It's going to mostly just keep the whole thing and just try and give me the edges a little bit.
Hmm. So
And that'll
that's
keep
how
it,
you make perfect edges, right?
is just to do one final one. Yeah, right at the very end. See, there
Oh
we go.
wow.
Got a nice clean edge, so I can accept that. And then I can move that clean one, see, nice square edges off to the side, and then just go through this and delete all of the various things that we did and erase this last little bit. And then we've got just this nice clean image of that was created by bashing together 3 of my previous images, and it gives it a sense of scale, and it's only got the robots and none of the people. And then the last thing I would do is say download artwork, and then there we go.
Man, this was
That's
an amazing lesson. Thank you so much. We have 2 minutes left. So, what would be the final advice to everybody who's watching this? Probably they are mesmerized with you did it so quick, so easy. You did it live. It's amazing. So, what would be the final advice?
some people can create prompts that just give absolutely fantastic artwork and that sort of thing. I have a prompting structure that works for me. It's very simple and repetitive, repeatable. So what my takeaway is to try and think of Leonardo as more than just text to image. You can do a lot of really creative things if you take a look at all the different pieces that we've been given as part of this suite of tools. That just because something maybe doesn't work out from a prompt, or if you're trying to do something that's not existing in real life, you can still make it work if you use some of the other tools. We can draw our own images and turn them into AI images. We can combine images in image to prompts, or image to image. And lastly, the canvas is extremely powerful for being able to combine stuff or change pieces of images with keeping everything else conserved. And don't think of failed generations as failures. They can often be useful to create a bigger sense of a whole piece that you're looking for. So I just like to try and keep myself open and think of different ways that I can use the whole thing to try and create the art pieces that I'm looking for.